Okay, so this is the last subsection in culture and psychiatric diagnosis, cultural concepts of distress. So what I'm going to do in this video is there's I'm just going to walk you through what I added to the lecture, my own reflection. I'm sorry, what I added to the text in terms of my own reflections from this subsection. So that includes these key terms, the four features related to, I'm sorry, the four key features related to cultural concepts of distress, the importance of cultural concepts of distress to psychiatric diagnosis, and culture terms and explanations should be included in case formulations. I add a little bit about that. So here, as we look at these three terms, just read them and hopefully they come across straightforward to you. Again, these, when you see these things highlighted here, these three terms, know that they are more likely to end up they might make a good multiple choice question or set of multiple choice or a matching question. So again, you don't need to memorize it. Just sort of be familiar with the concepts and know where to come back and make sure you are clear on the differences, the nuances of each of these types of cultural concepts of distress. Okay. Um, so the one thing I added here was in the DSM, I think is relatively explicit in saying this, and so it's a little bit more of an echo. But I wanted to underscore that that we're not looking. Rarely are you going to have like every box checked on criteria in a very clear and concise way. Sometimes you will, but often you won't. And maybe the majority of the time, you'll have the majority of the criteria. You'll have enough criteria to meet for a diagnosis, but it won't. They're not meant to be perfect matches. In other words, here's a case. Here's a clinical presentation. A client, they perfectly match this, right? And that's not really the way it works. And one of the reasons why it's not meant to be like ironclad fits for clients is that diagnoses aren't specific to a culture. And in other words, I'll restate that. So the way people perceive what's happening within them and what's happening around them, and how culture is part of how that is informed, right? It's individual experiences, it's what's happening in them biologically sometimes, and the circumstances around them. And then culture is another part of that influence in terms of how people perceive the world and even perceive what's happening within them. Okay, what's occurring within them. So all of that is creates very individual nuance of every client expresses things just slightly differently or their own unique way. And so we try to, as best we can, gather that data, find the best fitting criteria, and map that criteria to the best fitting diagnosis so that we can begin to tailor a plan that is as nuanced to them as that individual or that couple or family as possible. All right. So and not doing that, on the negative, to state it in the negative, not factoring in how culture is an influence that overall experience, what's happening with the client, it can lead to a lack of understanding, or sort of, bad, misdiagnosis, diagnosis that doesn't really fit, then a treatment plan that doesn't really fit. And of course, it also is fertile soil for bias to grow. Okay. So actually, I'll stop there and also maybe chop this up a little bit, okay, in the course of the videos.